In 1986, one Italian winemaker added methanol to wine and killed 23 people. That's the low point. The comeback story is wilder. Italy now makes 1 in 5 bottles of wine on Earth. Here's how that actually happened, and why almost none of it was planned. Piedmont. Start in the fog south of Turin, where a grape called Nebbiolo makes Barolo, the wine Italians call the king of wines and the wine of kings. Here's the part nobody tells you. Until the 1840s, Barolo was sweet and slightly fizzy. The freezing Piedmont winters stopped fermentation halfway through, so the sugar never fully converted. It wasn't a stylistic choice, it was a technical failure they'd just accepted for centuries. A French noblewoman, Marchesa Giulia Faletti di Barolo, born Juliette Colbert, descended from Louis XIV's own finance minister, hired a French enologist to fix it. "Ferment it, bone dry," he said, and she did. Count Camillo Cavour, the statesman who would later unify the entire country of Italy, ran the same experiments at his castle in Grinzane at the same time. The wine that defines Italian identity was essentially invented by a French woman and perfected by a politician. Jump forward to 1985. A young winemaker named Elio Altare walked into his father's cellar, looked at the enormous old barrels that had been there for generations, and picked up a chainsaw. He cut every one of them to pieces. His father disinherited him on the spot. Altare is now considered one of the greatest winemakers in Italy. The cellar is full of small French barrels. Veneto and Lombardy. East of Milan, a region called Franciacorta quietly built Italy's answer to Champagne. In 1955, a young enologist named Franco Ziliani convinced Count Guido Berlucci to try a French-style sparkling wine. 6 years later, they had 3,000 bottles. By 1995, Franciacorta had DOCG status, with rules stricter than Champagne itself. Most people still don't know it exists. Meanwhile, in Veneto, the most accidental great wine in history was born. In 1936, a cellar master at a cooperative in Nigrar forgot a barrel of sweet Recioto wine in storage. The yeasts kept fermenting for months until every last gram of sugar turned to alcohol. When someone finally opened it, the wine was bone dry and devastatingly powerful. The founder reportedly tasted it, grimaced, and shouted that this wasn't sweet at all. It was Amarone, bitter. The name stuck. Premium bottles from producers like Quintarelli now sell for over $400 apiece. And Prosecco, until 2009, that was the name of the grape, not the place. Then Australian growers started planting it and selling their own Prosecco. Italy's response was strategic genius. Rename the grape Glera, turn Prosecco into a legally protected geographical name covering 9 provinces. Australia lost, Italy won. You've never heard that story because Italy doesn't want you thinking about it too hard. Friuli. This is where the global orange wine movement was born, and it started with a disaster. Joško Gravner was making polished, internationally styled whites in the 1980s. He had the ratings, the export market, the whole package. Then in 1996, a single brutal hailstorm destroyed everything. His vines, his harvest, his plans. Instead of rebuilding what he had, he flew to Georgia. The ancient Georgia, the cradle of winemaking, where people have been fermenting wine in buried clay vessels called kvevri for 8,000 years. He bought 11 of them, shipped them home, buried them in the ground in his village of Oslavia, and started fermenting his Ribolla Gialla on the skins for 6 months. The wine came out amber, tannic. Unlike anything else in modern Italy, critics pulled his ratings. Sommeliers mocked him. He didn't care. Now his bottles command Burgundy prices, and the orange wine movement he accidentally started has spread across the entire wine world. One hailstorm changed global winemaking. Not a trend, not a manifesto, a storm. The mountain regions. Quick orientation before we go south. Alto Adige in the Alps is bilingual, German north of Bolzano and Italian south of it. Gewürztraminer, that grape, is literally named after the village of Tramin, right there. The name means spiced grape from Tremen. Every time someone orders a Gewürz, they're saying a tiny Austrian town's name and don't know it. Trenta Doc's sparkling wine has been made there since 1902 when Giulio Ferrari pioneered it. The Alpine Reds Lagrange and Terol Dago have been hiding from export markets for a century, and they're excellent. Emilia-Romagna, Lambrusco almost destroyed itself. In the 1970s, the Reunite Cooperative shipped sweetened, dumbed-down Lambrusco to America with a jingle. Reunite on ice, that's nice. And it worked catastrophically well. By 1981, Americans were drinking 135 million bottles a year. It stayed the top-selling imported wine in the US from 1976 until the year 2000. That success buried the real Lambrusco for 30 years. The artisan tradition, the dry ancestral method versions, the actual complexity the grape can achieve. All of it got associated with bargain fizzy red in a bulk bottle. Today, producers like Clito, Chiarli, and Lini make dry Lambruscos that sommeliers seek out specifically. The reputation is slowly coming back. It took 30 years of embarrassment to get there. Tuscany. In the 1860s, a pharmacist named Clemente Santi started experimenting with a specific Sangiovese clone on a hillside in Montalcino. His grandson Ferruccio, who'd actually fought under Garibaldi, bottled the first Brunello di Montalcino in 1888. The family stayed the only commercial producer for nearly 70 years. The original 1888 bottles still sit in the cellar, walled up by his son Tancredi during World War II to hide them from German soldiers. Those bottles are still there. Meanwhile, on the Tuscan coast, Mario Incisa della Rocchetta planted Cabernet Sauvignon at Bulgari and called his wine Sassicaia. Italian law classified it as the lowest category of table wine. He didn't care. In 1978, Sassicaia beat 33 international Cabernets from 11 countries at a blind decanter tasting. Robert Parker later gave the 1985 vintage 100 points. A table wine, 100 points. The classification system had to change. The South. Here's where most wine drinkers stop paying attention, which is exactly why the value exists. Umbria grows Sagrantino, one of the most tannic red wines on the planet. In 1622, cutting down a Sagrantino vine was a capital offense. The grape was nearly extinct in the 1970s, with fewer than 10 hectares remaining before a single producer, Arnaldo Caprai, brought it back alone. Campania is where ancient Greek colonists planted vines 2,500 years ago. One family, the Mastroberardinos, kept the native varieties alive through phylloxera, through poverty, through every reason to give up. Without them, southern Italian wine loses its entire identity. They later worked with archaeologists to replant Roman varieties inside the ruins of Pompeii. You can buy bottles from those exact vineyards right now. Basilicata grows Aglianico on the slopes of a dead volcano called Mount Vulture. Critics call it the most underrated red in Italy. It rivals Barolo for structure and depth, sells for a fraction of the price, and almost no one outside the wine world has tasted it. That's a buying opportunity or a tragedy, depending on how you look at it. Puglia. In 1994, a geneticist at UC Davis proved through DNA fingerprinting that California's Zinfandel was genetically identical to Puglia's Primitivo. Then her team confirmed both were identical to an ancient Croatian grape. Your American Zinfandel? It's a Puglian grape that took a long detour through Croatia before landing in California. That's not a fun fact. That's an identity crisis for an entire wine region. Sicily had a wild origin story for its most historic wine. In 1773, an English merchant named John Woodhouse sheltered in the port of Marsala during a storm and tasted the fortified wine. He saw a fortune. Lord Nelson ordered 200 barrels for the Royal Navy in 1798. When Garibaldi landed at Marsala in 1860 with his 1,000 red shirts to begin the unification of Italy, 2 British Royal Navy warships sat offshore protecting British-owned wineries. Wine. They were protecting wine. Today, the black volcanic slopes of Mount Etna produce Norello Mascalese reds that taste like they came from Burgundy by way of a volcano. They kinda did. Sardinia is one of 5 blue zones, regions with the highest concentration of people over 100 years old anywhere on Earth. They drink Cannonau, which is genetically identical to French Grenache and Spanish Garnacha, brought by centuries of Aragonese rule. Researchers have linked its high polyphenol content to local longevity. Whether that's the wine or the mountains or just good genetics, nobody can say. But the wine is extraordinary and the people are very old. If you'd like to see more food breakdowns like this one, make sure to subscribe to not miss any future videos.